Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our monthly meeting of the Cobb County Board of Zoning Appeals. Before we go any further, and I'm going to break up, today's really a sad day for our county and its residents. Last Thursday, 2 county sheriff's deputies were killed in the line of duty. And so before we begin today, I'd like us all to stand, if they're able, and observe a moment of silence in honor and memory of Cobb County Sheriff Deputy Jonathan Randall Koleski and Deputy Marshal Samuel Evans Jr. Afterwards, we'll do the Pledge of Allegiance. And now we can do the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We will now call the meeting to order. If you have standard line, if you have your cell phones, please silence them. If not, turn them off. For those of you who do not have a copy of today's agenda or who are attending for the first time, we will concern ourselves with cases that are on consent. These are cases that have been reviewed by the board and by the professionals from various departments here in the county, and to which there is no known opposition at this time. We have discussed these in our work session. Certain staff comments and stipulations have been made, and we do not anticipate any further discussion is needed for a decision. So, as we move forward now, our zoning division manager, Mr. John Peterson, will read each case into the record. Mr. Peterson will ask you to raise your hand as your case is called to signify you're present. If you are here in opposition to a case that is currently on consent, Mr. Peterson will ask you to identify yourself as that case is read into the record. We will then pull the case off of consent and hear it as part of our regular agenda. We will then vote on all these cases still on consent at one time. Once we have approved the cases on consent, we will move to our regular case agenda. With that, we're ready to address the consent cases. Mr. Peterson, it's all yours.
Okay, and before I get going on that, Madam Chair and Board, I do have a few pieces of housekeeping to do. The following cases have been continued or held, and these cases will not be heard today. First case is variance case V-84, Aqua Design Pools and Spas, LLC. This case was continued until the October 12, 2022 Board of Zoning Appeals variance hearing, so V-44 will not be heard today. Variance case V-98, Everest Developers, LLC. This case was continued by the staff until the October 12, 2022 Board of Zoning Appeals variance hearings, so V-98 will not be heard today. Madam Chair and Board, I did get a request yesterday to continue variance case V-100, David Pete and Rebecca Pete. The applicant wants more time to work on their plans, so the staff would ask the board to continue variance case V-100 until your October 12th hearing date.
Thank you, Mr. Peterson. We need a motion now to go ahead and move that off the agenda. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
So moved. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, all in favor, please place your vote. 5 to approve moving case 100 to the October meeting. Thank you, Mr. Peterson.
Thank you. I do have one case, Madam Chair and Board, which the applicant is asking for a withdrawal. That's variance case V-85, Todd E. Haley. Is the applicant here for V-85? Madam Chair and Board, it's my understanding that the applicant would like to withdraw this case. They've decided to put the building in another location on the property. So we need a vote by the board on that.
Madam Chair, that's in District 1, and the applicant called me this morning and indicated he wants to use an existing pad elsewhere on the property for which he likely needs no variance, but we don't have to deal with that today. We just, I told him I would make a motion that we, and I do hereby make a motion that we allow that application to be withdrawn without prejudice.
I second it.
All in favor? The motion passes 5-0. Thank you, Mr. Blanc.
All right. Cobb County Board of Zoning Appeals, variance hearing consent agenda for September 14th, 2022. First case on consent is Madison Reek, Foresight Group. Request a variance to waive the individual parking ratios for each tenant in favor of an overall parking ratio of 1 parking space per 300 square feet of net floor space for the center and outbuildings in land lots 1028 and 1029 of the 16th district. The property is located on the west side of Ross Road, north of Robinson Road. The Board of Zoning Appeals recommends approval, subject to the revised site plan dated August 19th, 2022. The applicant's representative is present. Is there anyone here opposed to variance case V80? Let the record show there's no one opposed. Variance case V84, Les Fisher requests a variance to allow a fence to exceed 6 feet in height, which is an existing 8-foot fence, when adjacent to a public road right-of-way or in front of or to the side of a house in a residential district in land lot 113 of the 20th district. The property is located on the southeast corner of Rabbit Run and Cheatham Road, south of Dallas Ackworth Highway. The Board of Zoning Appeals recommends approval, subject to number 1, development inspections comments, and number 2, northwest corner of the fence to be 15 feet off the right-of-way. Is the applicant present? Let the record show the applicant is here. Is there anyone here opposed to variance case V84? Let the record show there's no one opposed. And 85 was taken off. Variance case V86, Aqua Design Pools and Spas LLC, request a variance to number 1, reduce the major side setback from required 20 feet to 18 feet, which is existing. Number 2, reduce the side setback for a deck and pool decking from required 5 feet to 2 feet adjacent to the western property line. And number 3, increase the maximum allowable impervious coverage from 35% to 39% in land lot 746 of the 16th district. The property is located on the southwest corner of Murdoch Road and Bellhurst Drive, across from Bunker Hill Road. The Board of Zoning Appeals recommends approval, subject to the following conditions. Number 1, stormwater management comments. And number 2, revised site plan attached to the email from John Peterson dated September 13th, 2022. Is the applicant present? Let the record show the applicant is here. Is there anyone here opposed to variance case V86? Let the record show there's no one opposed. Variance case V88, Tatiana Kuprenko requests a variance to reduce the rear setback from required 35 feet to 20 feet in land lots 146 and 159 of the 20th district. The property is located at the southern terminus of Balvenie Place, south of Glengyle Park. The Board of Zoning Appeals recommends approval. Is the applicant present? Let the record show the applicant is here. Is there anyone here opposed to variance case V88? Let the record show there's no one opposed. Variance case V89, Dogwood Veterinary Property. Request a variance to reduce the setback for a freestanding sign from required 42 feet from the center line of a local road right-of-way to 16 feet in land lot 924 of the 17th district. The property is located on the northern side of Paris Ferry Common, west of Paris Ferry Road. The Board of Zoning Appeals recommends approval, subject to fire department comments and traffic comments. Is the applicant present? Let the record show the applicant is here. Is there anyone here opposed to variance case V89? Let the record show there's no one opposed. Variance case V90, David Mayo requests a variance to number 1, reduced rear setback for a pool deck from required 5 feet to 0 feet, which is existing. And number 2, reduce the setbacks for an accessory structure, a proposed 840 square foot garage from required 100 feet to 30 feet, adjacent to the western property line and to 5 feet adjacent to the northern property line in land lot 1090 of the 17th district. The property is located on the north side of Cherry Hill Drive, east of Thunderbird Drive. The Board of Zoning Appeals recommends approval, subject to the following conditions. Number 1, no living and cannot be converted from a garage to a pool house. Number 2, the garage to be a carriage house design and will be buffered from the street along Thunderbird Trace. And number 3, a landscape plan will be submitted to the county arborist for approval. Is the applicant present? Let the record show the applicant is here. Is there anyone here opposed to variance case V90? All right, well, let's put that one on hold right now, and let's let the person with questions talk to the applicant and see if they can get the questions answered. So if y'all can meet over here on the side, and we'll come back to that one, Madam Chair and Board. Okay, variance case V91, Steve Conley requests a variance to allow an accessory structure, which is a proposed 576 square foot carport to be located in front of the principal building in land lot 332 of the 20th District. The property is located at the northern terminus of Sherman Ridge Drive, west of Kennesaw View Drive. The Board of Zoning Appeals recommends approval. Is the applicant present? Let the record show the applicant is here. Is there anyone here opposed to variance case V91? Let the record show there's no one opposed. Variance case V92, George Montgomery Jr. requests a variance to, number one, reduce the setbacks for an accessory structure for livestock, which is an approximately 945 square foot barn, required 100 feet to 25 feet adjacent to the western property line. And number two, allow a second electrical meter on residential lot in land lot 715 of the 16th District. The property is located at the western terminus of Laurel Lake Drive, west of Bells Ferry Road. The Board of Zoning Appeals recommends approval, subject to accessory structure not to be used for residential or commercial purposes. Is the applicant present? Let the record show the applicant is here. Is there anyone here opposed to variance case V92? Let the record show there's no one opposed. Variance case V93, Nadine Sophia Evans requests a variance to number one, number one, to allow an accessory structure, which is a proposed 120 square foot swim spa to be to the side of the principal building. And number two, reduce the front setback from required 45 feet to 44 feet, which is existing in land lot 1094 of the 17th District. The property is located on the southeast side of Collins Drive, east of Riverlook Parkway. The Board of Zoning Appeals recommends approval, subject to a private fence along the back of the driveway to connect to the existing fencing. Is the applicant present? Let the record show the applicant is here. Is there anyone here opposed to variance case of V93? Let the record show there's no one opposed. Variance case V94, Jeff Osterling and Lori Osterling request a variance to allow a second electrical meter on a residential lot, land lot 236 of the 20th District. The property is located on the west side of Ackworth West Road, north of Cook's Farm Drive. The Board of Zoning Appeals recommends approval, subject to the accessory structure not to be used for residential or commercial purposes. Is the applicant present? Present. Let the record show the applicant is here. Is there anyone here opposed to variance case of V94? No. Let the record show there's no one opposed. Variance case V95, Joseph J. Bellotti requests a variance to number one, reduce the side setback for an accessory structure under 144 square feet for an existing approximately 664 square foot shed, required 5 feet to 3 feet adjacent to the western property line. Number two, reduce the side setback from required 10 feet to 9 feet adjacent to the western property line, which is existing. And number three, reduce the front setback from required 35 feet to 20 feet in land lot 268 of the 17th District. The property is located on the north side of Pineland Drive, across from Head Drive. The Board of Zoning Appeals recommends approval, subject to development inspections comments. Is the applicant present? Let the record show the applicant is here. Is there anyone here opposed to variance case V95? Let the record show there's no one opposed. Variance case V96, June Pierce, Cynthia Pierce LeMay, and James LeMay request a variance to reduce the setbacks for existing pools on lots 1 and 2 from required 5 feet to 0 feet adjacent to the northern property lines in land lot 1191 of the 16th District. The property is located on the west side of Lakeshore Drive, north off Blackland Drive. The Board of Zoning Appeals recommends approval. Is the applicant present? Let the record show the applicant is here. Is there anyone here opposed to variance case V96? Let the record show there's no one opposed. Variance case V99, Antoine Withdrawal requests a variance to reduce the rear setback from required 35 feet to 10 feet in land lots 74 and 80 of the 1st District. The property is located on the west side of Sherwood Lane, south of Paper Mill Road. The Board of Zoning Appeals recommends approval. Is the applicant present? Let the record show the applicant is here. Is there anyone here opposed to variance case V99? Let the record show there's no one opposed. Variance case V101, Jeremy Segal and Allison Segal request a variance to reduce the side setback from required 10 feet to 5 feet adjacent to the southern property line in land lot 169 of the 16th District. The property is located on the west side of Windsor Oak Drive, south of Windsor Drive. The Board of Zoning Appeals recommends approval, subject to development inspections comments. Is the applicant present? Let the record show the applicant is here. Is there anyone here opposed to variance case V-101? Let the record show there's no one opposed. And last on the agenda is variance case V-102, Brandon Moss. Request a variance to reduce the rear setback for an accessory structure under 650 square feet for a proposed approximately 480 square foot garage, required 35 feet to 6 feet in land lot 1186 of the 16th District. The property is located at the eastern terminus of Dickerson Road, south of Lakeshore Way. The Board of Zoning Appeals recommends approval, subject to the following conditions. Number 1, no living or residential dwelling space in the accessory structure. Number 2, the accessory structure cannot be converted from a garage to a pool house. Number 3, accessory structure to match style and architecture of the existing house. And number 4, the gutter system on the accessory structure must be directed away from the neighbors and directed into a dry well per county standards. Is the applicant present? Let the record show the applicant is here. Is there anyone here opposed to variance case V-102? Let the record show there's no one opposed to variance case V-102. And that completes the consent agenda, Madam Chair and Board. It looks like the applicant for V-90 is still out there discussing it. Okay.
Okay. Madam Chair, I would just like to recuse myself from V-80 and ask that it be called separately with my being recused, so that could be taken up while we're waiting on this announcement.
Okay. Do I have a second?
Second.
Oh, I can't make the motion on V-80.
So I'll make the motion.
Yeah, thank
Sorry
you.
about that. We have a motion to treat V-80 separately, remove it as an individual vote due to conflict of interest. Do I have I make a motion that we remove this and do it as a separate item. Do I have a second?
Second.
Please vote. So, did I follow the procedures correctly? So that is approved. All right, now we will vote on the rest of the consent cases. How do we want to handle 90?
The person who had questions for V-90 has left, so V-90 can stay on consent agenda as it was read in.
Okay, so,
Okay, Madam Chair, I make a motion that we approve the consent agenda with the exclusion of the item that was withdrawn and with the exclusion of V-80, which has already been approved. I move that we approve the balance of the consent agenda as read and as revised.
I second that motion.
thank you. Please vote. The consent agenda, as stated, passes 5-0. Thank you. All right, now we're ready to move. Okay, yes. Anyone that's not needed at this point in time and the case has been heard, please, please leave quietly, and we will now go on to the regular cases.
Okay.
I was going to give it a minute.
All right. Hey, Robin, did we do V-80 okay, or do we have to do it separately? Do we need to have a vote on that one separately?
I thought we,
Okay, so let's go ahead and do V-80 right now.
okay, do it again. All right. I have a motion to approve V-80.
I second that motion.
All in favor, please vote. Okay, passed 4-0. Mr. Blum? Yeah, we voted to remove it, yes. To vote for it separately, yes. It was voted for separately due to a conflict of interest, and that passed. So, are we all squared away now?
All squared away. Okay, moving into the agenda now. First case we're going to hear is variance case V-83.
Okay.
Francisco Hernandez requests a variance to allow an accessory structure, which is a proposed 555.2 square foot pavilion to be to the side of the principal building in land lot 975 of the 17th District. The property is located at the southern terminus of Ridge Point, east of Cochise Drive. Is the applicant present? Let the record show the applicant is here. Is there anyone here opposed to variance case V-83? Let the record show there's 2 people here opposed. All those who want to address the board, please come forward to be sworn in.
Cornelius can help you. And just to let everybody know our procedures at this point, both you and the opposition will have 10 minutes each to present your case. All the testimonies made from there, please, when you come up there, identify yourself. And just a little housekeeping reminder, once comments from all the parties related to the case have concluded and the public hearing has closed, there can be no more further comments from the parties involved unless requested by a member of the board, at which point you'll be asked to return to the podium. I just wanted you to understand our procedures. Thank you. Introduce yourself and move forward.
Sure, absolutely. Thank you very much. Thank you, commissioners, for having me today. My name is Francisco Hernandez, and I'm here today to request an approval for a variance to build a deck with a roof in the side of my property. The reason I want to build a deck with a roof is to enjoy the outdoors without the elements, and enjoy having some space for me, my family, my kids to enjoy. And the reason I'm asking this variance, and the reason I'm proposing to build this deck on this specific site is because 3 factors. The first one is the topography of my property is extremely steep. The location of the lot is at the end of a cul-de-sac that is downhill. Everything in the property is extremely steep. And the second factor is the property is crossed by 2 major easements. On one side, I have a water rain easement that goes down the hill. And on the opposite side, I have a sewage easement that crosses the property and goes behind the house, at least 10 feet from the house. There is no way for me to build the deck in my backyard, and there is no way for me to attach the deck to the main dwelling. So, and the third factor to consider is the canopy. I purchased this house 2 years ago, and since I've been remodeling the interior, but also taking care of the trees. The house is surrounded by beautiful old trees, and I took care of the vines and taking care of all the trees. The only place in the entire property where there is a clear that there are no trees is precisely on the side of the property in connection to my next door neighbor, Mr. and Mrs. Gallagher, who I understand they're opposing. I met with Mr. and Mrs. Gallagher 3 times. One before filing the application, to explain them the project and to seek their opinion. I gave them the entire deck, and they were able to stay overnight with the deck. I didn't hear anything else after. A few weeks later, I met with them again, and I had the time to see other possibilities to hear their concerns. And at that time, they told me, we're concerned you're going to block our view. They have a master bedroom suite in their main floor. So I sat down with them and explore the possibility of lowering the slope of of the roof to see if that will help, and also move the deck further into my property. So today, the proposed deck is to be built 22.5 feet away from the property line, and also is at least 14.5 feet below their master suite window. The projected deck is separated from their house with massive evergreens, at least one big or two big magnolia trees are protecting their house. All those trees are in my property, and I propose to also plant more trees, more evergreens, tall greens, as part of the landscaping project. I also had my landscaper sat down with them and explained them the entire project and why they should not be afraid that I will be cutting trees. It's the opposite. I invested more than $100,000 in trees, in big trees, in that side of the property. And I'm willing to put more because I understand it's nicer to see green than a structure. But I really would like to proceed with a deck that will help us enjoy the outdoors. I don't know if you have access to the file and you can see the survey, but I brought this big copy. So in here, oh, thank you very much. Thank you very much. These are the two easements. This over here is the water rain easement, and this is the sewage easement on the property. This line reflects the property line between my property and Mr. and Mrs. Gallagher. The projected deck is to be built here, obviously respecting the distance and the required distance from the sewage. So we are not only 12 feet away from the sewage easement, but also 22.5 feet away from the property line. In here, in here, you can see this is where the projected deck is going to be built. The red line represents the new location of the deck, and this represents. Oh, can you put this on there? Yeah, maybe turn it. I guess this way. Let's see if that works. No. Thank you. Yes, here. So in here, you can see this is the projected roof that is the lowest part is facing the Gallaghers. I'm proposing to, instead of putting a wall with stone, I'm proposing to turn that stone into just stucco or wood, and paint it in a way that it can be blended with the trees. The idea is that behind that wall, I'm planting new evergreens, at least 15 feet tall, that are already going to be higher than the wall, that the projected wall that is going to be 9 feet. Also, as part of trying to get a compromise, I agreed to lower the slope of the roof at least 2 feet.
And you have a little bit over 1 minute left, just so you know.
I would like to present, this is the, this picture represents the view from my property line, which is already at my site level, which is around 5.7 feet. This represents the view of the projected pavilion. I built this structure to help Mr. and Mrs. Gallagher understand the location and the proportions of the projected deck. Thank you. That's all.
Thank you. Please state your name.
My name is Kevin Gallagher. Are we ready to go?
Yes.
Okay. My wife Peggy and I have lived at 3330 Ridge Point for over 25 years. We raised 2 children there, and we are now both retired. Our house is contiguous to the property owned by the applicants, and we appear here to oppose the variance requested in case V-83. First, I would like the board to be aware that Thomas Ham, the contiguous property owner of the other side on the other side of applicant's property, also opposes this variance and has submitted a letter to that effect. A copy of the letter is in the package that we've given to the staff. The applicants purchased the property at 33340 Ridge Point in the spring of 2021. From that time until the applicants moved in June 2022, there was a continuous stream of carpenters, plumbers, electricians, painters, landscapers, and others working on the house and yard. Their trucks blocked the road and driveways, they crushed bushes, they interfered with mail delivery and the pickup of trash and recycling, and placed a dumpster in the street. We tolerated these inconveniences because we knew they would be transitory, and we even consented to a variance requested by the applicants related to modifications they were doing to their carport, and helped others on their cul-de-sac to agree. Just as we were assured this work was winding down and all that was left was some landscaping, Mr. Hernandez dropped this bombshell on us. They wanted to put a pavilion he described outside our master bedroom window. This is the dispute that's before you today. The proposed pavilion violates the requirements of Cobb zoning ordinance section 134-196. The proposed pavilion is a covered deck, either 555 or 355 feet square in size. There's an uncertainty on that point, I guess. It is an accessory structure under the ordinance. Such structures are required to be located to the rear of the building on the lot. Here, behind the principal building on the lot, here the house. The rear of the primary structure is defined to be where the main portion of the building ends. Accessory buildings are not to be placed on the side of the primary structure. The obvious purpose of this provision is to prevent interference with neighbors at the sides of the property. The application states that the proposed pavilion is to be put on the side of the house and not behind it, and so it is not compliant with the ordinance. To get a variance, applicants must establish that there would be an unnecessary hardship suffered by denying the variance. The hardship cited by the applicants does not relate to any risk to the property or any threat to its value or any inability to access services or creation of a traffic hazard or any similar harm. Instead, the application states the hardship is the provide a safe place for my children to play outside. This is a goal and not a hardship. It's a goal that can be achieved without the proposed pavilion. Specifically, applicants' children can play safely outside without a pavilion. Any unsafe outside condition could be adequately addressed by any number of other means that did not require a pavilion. Nor is it clear that the proposed pavilion is any safer than the property would be without the proposed pavilion. Indeed, the illustrations in document G104, which is in the packet we have, show that the proposed pavilion could actually present potential additional hazards. First, the deck of the pavilion juts over a substantial downslope protected only by an open railing. Children playing or climbing on that railing may run the risk of a fall from a dangerous height. Second, there would be a temptation for children to throw objects over the railing to or at other children down below with obvious risks of injury. Third, there's the presence of a functioning fireplace at the end of the pavilion. This has inherent risks and is not a normal feature for the children's play spaces. In sum, the pavilion is not the only way to provide a safe space for children to play outdoors. Other options would remain available if the variance was denied without causing unnecessary hardship. The applicants point out that the placement of the pavilion on their property is hampered by zoning or by the zoning ordinance, a sewer easement, a drainage easement, topographical features of their property, and trees. It is true that each of these factors restricts to some extent where they can put the pavilion on their property, but each of these issues was known or should have been known by them before they bought the property. Also, the applicant's proposed pavilion would interfere with the enjoyment of our own property and undermine the purpose of the zoning ordinance. For one thing, the pavilion's fireplace is close to our back deck and our master bedroom window, a window we like to open. You can see that on XT 101. Indeed, if you take a look at the bird's eye view in XT 101, you will see that the fireplace is actually closer to the bedroom window. The proposed fireplace is actually proposed to be closer to our bedroom window than it is to the applicant's house. The top of the fireplace's chimney is a few feet lower than the height of our back deck and the bottom of our master bedroom window. This means that when the fireplace is operating, we will be having to cope with smoke rising up from the chimney. Also, the proposed pavilion would interfere with our view from the master bedroom window. We acknowledge that the applicants have done some work to try and address this issue, but it is not enough to solve our concerns. As noted above, the proposed pavilion is in front of that window. If you look at the cross-section diagram on XT 101, you will see the side of the pavilion facing our house has a solid wall, which you saw on the overhead as well, and a sloped roof slants up and away from our window. If this pavilion is built, when we look down from our window, we will see the solid wall. When we look straight out, we would see this 355 square foot asphalt roof. We do not wish this to happen, and under the zoning ordinance, it should not. In sum, this proposed pavilion would violate the letter and intent of the zoning ordinance. Both contiguous neighbors oppose granting the requested variance, and the applicants have not shown that they would suffer any unnecessary hardship without this variance. Accordingly, we respectfully request that this variant application be denied. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. If that's all you have, you can be seated.
Excuse me?
If that's all you have
That's
for us.
all.
Yes,
Thank
thank you. All right, I will turn this over to the District Commissioner for her comments.
Can I just take a 2-minute recess? I just need to look something up. Is that?
Yeah? All right. 2-minute recess. We'll be back on record in 2 minutes.
So I've had the opportunity to go out and meet with the Gallaghers, and then also to meet with Mr. Hernandez and some of the people that are putting together the plan, that was putting together the plan of this deck. So I've had a lot of time to think about this variance. And while I was doing that, I reviewed what our powers are that a variance board has. And in that, one of them is that due to extraordinary and exceptional conditions pertaining to the particular piece of property in question, because of its size, because of its shape, size, and topography. As Mr. Hernandez pointed out, and we saw in the diagram, when I visited his home, we walked through the location where he proposed to place the deck. The topography of his property is severe, and I walked from the side that is close to the Gallaghers through the back to the other side to see if there was another location where he could possibly place his deck. And in actuality, the only place that is level is where he can attach it to a small existing deck off to the side of his house. He can't place a deck off the back of his house like his neighbor next to him without removing a significant amount of trees, as well being, he still has to be 12 feet off the sewer line and the rain easement that is to the other side of his property, so that can't be built like the Gallaghers have their deck built. This deck is for the outdoor enjoyment of the area, as with many homes in the area and many homes built in Cobb County. They have decks where they can enjoy off the back of their property, off the back of their house, so that they can enjoy the outdoors. This is a beautiful area with some beautiful trees, and it just leads to them a very nice area to enjoy. The code also states that if the relief is granted, that it would not cause substantial detriment to the public good. So I had Mr. Hernandez speak with the Gallaghers to see what their concerns were and if there was something that he could do to help alleviate some of their concerns. And I think that in what he has proposed, he has done his due diligence. He was required to be 12 foot off the sewer line, so he had to move the deck down. I asked him to lower the elevation of the roof. The pitch of the roof was quite high, and he's agreed to do that. He's moved the deck 22.5 feet from his property line, and 14, which now results in 14.5 feet below the master window of the neighbor. He's agreed to paint the back of the deck with a natural color or to cover it with wood to blend with the environment. The other thing is, along that side, he is going to plant an additional row of trees and will be installing a fence along his property line. And I believe that an existing row of trees that he'll be installing will be a good screening from the Gallaghers' master bedroom. I believe that he's done pretty much all that he can to mitigate the impact of his deck and to provide his family with outdoor living space. I do agree, excuse me. I do agree that if this deck destruction will be permitted, that he would keep the area in front of his house, it's a small cul-de-sac, free of construction debris. And I would also attach that that he would install a chimney cap to prevent the excessive smoke when he has the fires. I also want to include the sewer comments, which was not included in our book, and the sewer comment is to say 12 foot off the sewer pipe. So with this, I make my motion to approve V-83.
Do we have that clarity?
Second, second the motion.
Hold on 1 second.
Okay.
I wanted to be sure that the clerk had the clarity they needed. Yes, motion to approve subject to the following conditions, correct?
Subject to the following conditions.
So, all right.
Okay, let me try. Motion to, or rather, second, the motion to approve V-83, subject to conditions which I understand to be both the sewer department comments and a requirement that there not be any items placed in the cul-de-sac during the construction process on any more than a very short-term basis. My understanding is that obviously the construction items may have to come and go, but there won't be for example, a monthly parking of a roll-off in Ridge Point or Ridge Place.
Okay. Would you like to amend the motion to include those details?
Right, so those are,
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. We now need to amend, so help me, Mr. Johnson. Are we good to let her just amend at this point, or do we need to remove them?
She can amend the original
Okay,
motion.
all right, thank
so
you.
I make my motion to approve V-83 to include, to amend. What word do you want?
I believe you were going to require something about not placing a roll-off. in
Okay,
the-
so to approve V-83, subject to keeping the area free and clear of debris during construction. There will be, I'm sure, construction vehicles during the day, but at the end of the day, all of the debris that's left behind can be removed. That the structure will be permitted, so he will have to go through the permit process to make sure that it is, that it is built within the setbacks and off of the sewer easement, and then to also install a chimney cap to prevent the excessive smoke, and then to also include, because the sewer comments did not get printed in the book, to include sewer comments to say the structure will be 12 foot off the sewer pipe.
Second.
Place our votes. The request passes 5-0. Thank you. Now we have to reconsider our approval on the consent of case V-84. We need, Mr. Johnson, listen, we need a motion to remove consent case V-84 from the consent agenda.
It needs to be reconsidered. It has been approved.
We need to be,
So it needs to be reconsidered.
motion.
Approval.
We need to reconsider approval of case V-84.
Correct.
Do I have a second?
That was your second? Oh, that was your motion? Okay.
Yes.
Second the motion to reconsider the approval of V-84 and to hear it.
Okay. We need a vote, please. Kim?
I'm sorry.
Okay. Removal, motion passed 5-0. We will now hear case V-84. So come up to the podium. You have 10 minutes to make your presentation.
I think they got it.
First of all, I'm sorry for being here. If I'd done my due diligence, this fence would not have been where it's at and how it's at. I didn't know. I got a very good fencing company, the best around that I was told, and
Madam
I didn't
Chair.
know either. Oh, I'm sorry. My name is Les Fisher. I'm sorry. So the only thing, when you guys approved it, there was a stipulation about 15 feet. And if I could show you a couple pictures, would that be fine? So this is... So if you can see here, this is the stop sign on Rabbit Run Road. It's approximately, the road here is approximately 14 feet to my chain link fence. The fence in question is exactly 8 feet behind that chain link fence. I cleared out all of the brush and everything here to make sure there's a right-of-way. So if you're driving up to it, you have approximately 22 feet of clear space from my fence to the road. And I'm just concerned that with the 15-foot stipulation in the original approval, I might be as little as 6 inches or as much as a foot or two off of that exact 15-foot measurement. So my goal in asking the reconsideration was honestly just to save me having to file another variance application for that 1 foot or whatever it is that I may be off of that 15 feet. And really, that's all I had. Thank you.
Do you have anything else to share?
No, ma'am.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I appreciate the brevity. Perhaps you could leave the picture up here and let me call Amy Diaz from the DOT up.
Amy Diaz, DOT.
Okay, and it's my recollection that at our work session, we discussed what the DOT requirements would be as to an 8-foot fence in this area, is that correct?
It's for anything over 3 feet. So yes, 8-foot fence would qualify.
Okay, so would that also apply to the chain link fence as well?
I believe so. I can't tell how high it is from the picture though. I mean, but it looks like it's 4 foot, so yes. What I suggested to the applicant was that I could have our traffic operations group go out and confirm that the site distance does meet requirements, and if it does, that we could then allow the variance for the corner clearance.
Okay, so help me with some language then. In lieu of the language we originally provided, it would be that the northwest corner of the fence and any portion of the fence not be within 15 feet of the right-of-way, provided, however, Cobb DOT
I guess you could say unless approved by Cobb DOT.
Well,
That would be the simplest way to say it.
Cobb DOT will inspect and may, in its discretion, allow if it does not impair a line of sight?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Anybody else?
Anyone else with any questions, Madam Chair?
That's clear.
All right, in that case, I make a motion that we approve V-84 with the stipulation modified in this manner, that the northwest corner of the fence and any and all portions of the fence being erected 8 feet tall be at least 15 feet from the right-of-way, provided, however, that the DOT has agreed to and will inspect and may, in its discretion, allow the fence to remain as is if, in their opinion and sole opinion, it does not impair the line of sight.
I second that motion.
And I'm sorry, it's also subject to all other staff comments provided on page 42 of our variance analysis book dated today.
Motion and a second, please vote. Thank you, pass 5-0.
All right, next case is variance case V-87. Christopher Bunch requests a variance to reduce the rear setback from required 30 feet to 10 feet in land lot 17 of the 16th district. The property is located at the eastern terminus of Pine Ridge Court, east of Willow Creek. Is the applicant present? The record shows the applicant is here. Is there anyone here opposed to variance case V-87? Let the record show there's no one opposed. Would the applicant please come forward to be sworn in?
Please come to the podium and state your name. Thank you.
Name is Christopher Bunch.
Tell us about your project and why you're requesting your variance. Thank you.
Yes, looking to do a garage with a dwelling above, attached. I know there's been we want to make sure we're clear that we want to follow the codes and want to do everything on the up and up. I'm not trying to, go take any short corners or anything. Not 100% where that setback came from. The 10-foot request, I don't recall ever making that. I don't know exactly where that came from. But so the neighbors that'll be affected are on board, and the signatures are in the paperwork. The property that I am going to have to reduce the setback is actually is that me? Yeah. Is a, sorry. It's kind of a big, like undevelopable kind of piece of property right there. So Dave Tolka, who's become a pretty good friend of mine over the last 8-10 years that I've lived there, has absolutely no problem. And the neighbor to the right of me is Kobe Henry, and we're actually very close as well. I think the setback might be a little less than 10 feet. That's why I was wondering where the 10-foot. I don't recall ever saying that. I don't know where that came from.
Does that,
go ahead.
sorry,
I'm
does
sorry,
that
go ahead.
conclude your comments?
I think so. Yeah.
Okay,
Mr. Peterson sent me the codes yesterday as they're written, and I believe that we'll be able to fall in line with that, no problem.
so just for clarity, it was going to be detached, but you've decided,
Well, originally when I first walked into the permit office, I wasn't aware of the codes. So I was hoping to, I didn't know it needed to be attached at that time. And then I kind of went back to the drawing board and realized it really wouldn't be that big of a deal to attach it.
okay.
So, and I came back with all of the proper paperwork that I needed. And that's kind of brought me to here.
Okay, so it will be attached with a heated connection to the main
Yes.
house?
Yeah, what I was thinking is it's gonna come off the house, and then I was thinking the stairway that would go up, I could actually just make that whole area like conditioned space going up.
Okay. And just for clarity, who does come up with the 10-foot number that is listed in the agenda is?
When the application is dropped off our office, the staff does go through the paperwork, and we did scale it off the drawing. It was 10 feet.
So it was off the drawing, off the site plan? It might be 10 feet. I just, I think it'll be close.
Okay. Are there any other questions from the board? No. Okay. Well, now that you have changed your plans to make it attached, and that will meet the code, I would like to make a motion to approve V-87 with all staff comments, and that's my motion.
I second it.
Place your votes, please. Motion's been approved 5-0. Thank you so much.
Thank you guys so much. Appreciate it. God bless.
All right, next case is variance case of V-97. Peter Hoffman, requests a variance to reduce the front setback from required 60 feet to 46 feet in land lot 1003 of the 17th District. The property is located on the south side of Timberland Drive, south of Beechwood Drive. Is the applicant present? Let the record show the applicant is here. Is there anyone here opposed to the variance case V-97? Let the record show there's one person opposed.
We'll have you come up and with a comment, you still need to be sworn in.
Okay.
If both parties can come forward. No, sir, you need to be sworn in, and he needs to speak first. You will follow him, sir. Hmm?
Hello, good afternoon. My name is Peter Hoffman. I'm the applicant. This is a new build of a new house. And when the house was built, we thought we measured it out right. And I think 6 weeks ago, it came to our attention that the house is 10 feet closer to the road than it's supposed to be. We informed our neighbors, that the house is closer to the road. We had the homeowner association coming in. They were fine with it. They didn't say anything about it, and they said it's okay. We can do that. We didn't move it, left or right closer to my neighbor's property or further back. And and I hope we can continue to build as it is. Otherwise, it would be very hard, to tear this all down. And by doing so, we also saved a lot of trees in the back because that property is almost 2 acres. And we saved a lot of trees, while the house is standing a little bit closer to the road. And and that's basically it.
Anything else to add, sir?
Excuse me?
Anything else you need to add, sir?
No, that's it.
All righty. Thank you. You can be seated. If we have more
Thank you.
questions, we'll ask you to come back. Yes. State your name, please, when you're up there.
Hi, my name is Bruce Levitt. I'm the president of the HOA in this neighborhood, this Terra Mill Estates. And we actually welcome this house being built here. We like that's a pretty house. But we have a great concern as to how the heck this happened. We approved or gave our support for the first variance request back when the house was begun about almost 2 years ago, to go from 75 feet to 60 feet. And it was like, well, that would help a little bit in keeping the house forward away from some of the people who are in back. So there's a trade-off. But that was 60. We did give that for 60 feet. So then, a couple of months ago, this comes up. It's like, well, we're applying for this variance, but we've already put the house where another 15 feet closer. And so we're upset about that. We don't want this house wrecked in order to comply with something. But I guess we're just sort of befuddled and aggravated that it got to this point. So I don't know whether I'm for or against. I don't know what officially that is, but that's really the only comment I have to make.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Hoffman, can you come to the front, please? No, to the stand, I'm sorry. I have a question. Are you the builder or are you the owner?
I'm the owner, not the builder.
Okay. Is your builder here today?
Yes.
So could I have the builder come forward into this, please? And your builder would be, who is your builder?
AK Ventures LLC.
Okay, could I please have the builder come forward? Does he have to be sworn in?
Yes.
Please swear yourself in.
Okay, so I'm now confused. I didn't. You're good. Just, I'll ask questions.
I have a few questions. Mr. Hoffman, you can sit down. Thank you.
May I add some comment?
No, I'll ask some questions.
Please-
Can you
please
state your
in-
name, please?
My name is Keith Akalaki.
Okay, and you're the builder for this property?
Yes, ma'am.
How long have you been a builder in Cobb County?
20, 25 years. I bought a few houses, built a few houses.
How many homes have you approximately built?
Maybe 5 or 6. I do slowly as a hobby.
5 or 6 homes
Yes,
that
ma'am.
you've built over 20, 25 years?
Yes, ma'am. And I remodeled several.
Okay. The question is that this house is 14 feet outside of the setback, from the setback.
May I?
So, no, I'll ask you questions and then you can answer. So, instead of being the required 60 feet, you're now at the required 46 feet. So what I'd like to know, like we all would like to know here, is during construction, you were to submit in a plan before construction, and which you did with proper surveys. So the question would be, is that how did your survey that shows where your footers are to be placed, how did those get moved to require now this setback?
If I may say, house is sitting in the 60 foot. Only the garage in this side of the house sitting 14 and a half this way.
I clearly understand that.
That was a mistake by the foundation. We didn't notice him, by all due respect, until we were doing final framing inspection. They noticed it.
My question again goes to when you placed the footers for the house, for the garage, that there was an inspection and that you were approved at this setback, and then as we continue, then it's found that this is now, that the footers have been moved.
Forgive me, we didn't move the footing at all. It was just started like that way. We had the frame, the foundation guy, he assumed front of the house is sitting 60 foot from the property, not the garage. He didn't figure it out, and 12 foot by 14 foot and a half sitting this way. He made a mistake. That is the mistake happened. We are very apologize for that. I am apologizing because I should have noticed it, but I never noticed it until Stephen came to do the framing inspection. He noticed it at that time. He didn't even notice it in the framing on the foundation time, the inspector.
So, so your framer, have they done business in Cobb County?
I apologize, what?
The person that started the framing, that did your footers, have they done business in Cobb County?
I don't know. They're from all the way Cartersville, I believe. He has a Cartersville.
Do they have a license?
I'm sure they do. He's been doing it for a long time. I have a license, but I'm sure he does have a license too. Forgive me, I don't know the foundation people, footing people, they need a license. I'm not familiar with that. Please forgive me that.
So, when you realized that this garage was in the setback, what part were you in building this house? Where were you? What phase? That's what I was
We
trying
were
to know, the word
almost, we were in the sheetrock. Because the framing was done, we were starting the sheetrock, an inspector came in, and he noticed it at that time.
So then you didn't notice it. It was one of our inspectors that noticed
Yes,
it.
an inspector noticed it when he was doing rough framing, the final. We did all electric, everything was done. Only the time of the rough framing before sheetrock, he noticed it.
Okay, can you have a seat? And I would like to call Kevin Gobble, please. You can, sir, you can just stay at the front. I don't know his name. Keith, you can come and just sit in the front because I may have other questions.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. You can just sit at a chair. Thank you.
Hi, my name's Kevin Gobble.
Hi, Kevin. Can you go over this scenario about how this house came, like the process of how this house gets approved and moved on for building, kind of that process, and during that process, after you have seen the site plan and it's been approved for building and it has all the setbacks, all of that's recorded, what occurred?
Yes, once we review the site plan, once everything's approved and the building permit is issued, one of the footing and foundation inspections, along with the zoning compliance inspection, is it takes place. It's one of the first inspections that's normally out there. In this occurrence, if you can see the right side of the house, that was all a basement wall and was framed in. The left side of the house, the garage, that's a slab on grade, and that was not even framed up at the time they did the inspection. So what my inspector did was he approved the wall. He said, you're tight to the sight line, and said that we need a survey to confirm you're not in the setback, because he's thinking it's maybe a foot or so, you're within a foot or two of the setback at the front of the house. He did not check or see that the garage sit in front of that, or we would have stopped and at that point had everything moved back. So that may have been missed on our part, on not being able to see that that garage was there, because he said it wasn't framed up. This occurred to also, this house also had, I believe something was poured without our inspections on the garage, so then we had an engineer sign off on the structural aspects of that slab, which was the slab poured into that setback part of the garage. And then I show that there were notes in our system of a partial pass, and then the zoning compliance recorded, along with a letter saying that we need to revise, we need a survey for the framing. So there was some additional inspections that were done, and there were additional notes of things that needed to be corrected moving forward. And then there was some long time delay before we got into those final inspections. So he told them to issue a stop work order until we got the encroachment and items complete on how to address this.
So when this started, where you had the footing and zoning compliance scheduled, which was on 3/10/2021, correct?
Yes, ma'am. That's the records we have in our system.
So, and it was recorded as a FAILO?
Yes.
A-I-L-O? Would you explain what that is?
Well, one was that, I think that was a mistype there, but it was a failed inspection.
Failed.
So, yes, we go in and we put notes in our system. I just pulled these directly out. So that was a failed inspection. It had comments for the footing inspection was not ready, and the comment was the zoning compliance were not timed. So it really wasn't time to do that because they weren't all completed at that time. The 316 was the next one that failed as well for the footing inspection, and the comments were the footing was improper depth, the frost rule line, and he noted the code with the IRC is 403.
So on that one, this footing that was, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but the footing that it failed with the improper width and depth, did this include the garage, or this is still the time when you're looking at the footers of where the basement is? Or is this footing also including the garage?
I believe this was the footing without the slab, because it said that they were missing the grounding electrode, and that's typically in the slab area where the electrical panel is. So that was not at this time. The 318 was the next inspection, was a partial pass. And that was the foundation walls. And again, it said that they needed a third party for the footings for the basement walls, and that was due to a section of the footing being soft. So they wanted basically a third-party inspection to ensure that footing in that section. So the rest of it was complete, but they still needed a third-party engineer to complete that. And then we got a letter for that part of that inspection.
And all this time as we're going through inspections, you had a plat that you were looking at as to what this house looked like the build you had the garage and how far it had to be from the setback, the side setbacks. You had all of this at the time as we're going through all these dates?
So, yes, I have the original, I believe this is one of the original plats, if you can zoom in. So the front corner, if you can zoom in, I'm sorry, the one to the, here we go. I believe this is the 60-foot mark, and this was the house. This would be the footing, and then this is the slab of the garage, which is setting forward. That's in the setback.
So this was given to you by the.
This would be recorded, and it would be in our notes in our system, and then it would also should be on site. So we should have plans on site, and we should have the survey on site.
So the builder gave you this, and with all the proper measurements of where this all fits.
Yeah, this is
within setback.
This is sent to us when we approve the plan at the initial stage, and it should be on site and part of the construction drawings on site. I will say we do miss things from time to time, and we have a lot of inspections going on right now, so it's not an excuse, but that's how certain things can be overlooked in the course of construction, as we're looking at one thing and then we come back and notice that this is now an encroachment, and then they're looking for a way to correct that, so then they have to notify them to say, okay, this is in the setback. We need a survey to confirm that, because we're not going to pull those long tapes and confirm the point that we're going to. A lot of times we require the surveyor to do that for us.
So on 10/29/2021, what passed here?
That was pass inspection, allow the builder to schedule the roofs. That was the framing inspection, the garage and slabs. The slab had been poured, and that was not their procedure to, that we required an engineering letter on that. So he was doing a partial pass in our system and requiring an engineering letter to complete the rest.
So you had stated that this was poured without the builder having called for inspection. So both the garage area and the basement slabs were poured. Is that something that typically happens, that builders do a pour with no inspection no inspector coming out to make sure prior to the pour?
No, ma'am, that's not normal. We ask for everything to be inspected. We do next day inspections, so we try to get it around to everyone. We don't have, that's not a normal process. We look at it before it's poured, and a number of things that we're looking for is the steel, the structure, the width. We're looking at the soils underneath. We're doing testing on that, and then we're also looking for electrical connections, such as the UFR grounds and connections that way.
So then at this time, there still isn't like this red flag coming up that we're now into a setback issue?
No, man. The inspector, I believe, had notified them that we needed a survey, and allowed the rest of the construction to move forward until we got that survey to confirm that. But the notes in the system were not even looking at the garage. They were looking at how close. The inspector was thinking that you're a foot or so behind that. Make sure you get it done. That was his notes in his system. And the next time he went out, he's looking at the framing that he had already done the zoning compliance. So this is not a normal thing that we come across.
So then from 10/29/2021 to 6/22/2022, there was just rough, that he continued to build, and then this is when it was discovered that there was an issue? Or it looks 6/28 there was an issue with the stop work order?
Yes, ma'am.
So in 6/22,
There was a rough framing. So what we do is we do the footing foundation, then they do the framing walls, but then we allow all the trades to occur first. So all the electrical, mechanical, and plumbing comes in, and they do all that, and gas lines, so that if they are affecting or they're cutting something framing that they shouldn't, then we check that on the building rough is the final step before that. So he had trade inspections in between that. This is just building. And then the building rough came out, and that was failed on the 22nd. And the 28th, he noted that the framing was okay, but recorded the fail for the stop work order for the encroachment of the foundation and cantilevers into the zoning setbacks, and wrote a stop work order for the zoning setbacks under the zoning code section.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Gobble? Huh?
Just a couple. Thank you, Madam Chair. So how many cars is this garage designed to hold?
I believe it's a 3-car garage, yes.
Okay, so the depth of the garage, do you know how the distance from the front to the back of the garage coming away from the road?
I have the measurement at 46.2 feet. And
Right.
I can put this up there. Just so you can see. It goes this way. So those are the two measurements from the road. From the survey that was sent back to us as the as-built, it was 46.2. If I could zoom in with a magnifying glass, I made that a little larger. And the other was 60 point something. I didn't really pull that up.
To be clear, the distances you're giving us now are the distances from the right-of-way line, correct? Not from the roadbed?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
So the comment made earlier about the necessity to tear down the entire house would not be correct. There would just be a need to modify the garage size, perhaps, if they were scaled back, say, by 5 or 6 feet and required to maintain at least a 50-foot setback. They might lose one bay of a garage and still have a 2-car garage, correct?
I mean, anything can be done. The entire structure, the roof, the trusses, that would affect everything on the front part of the house and would need to be re-inspected.
Do you know how many square feet it's reported this house is going to be based upon the permit?
I don't have that in front of me, but sorry, I just went through the notes in our system.
Do you know how many bedrooms?
I do not have that. It's in our system, but 4-bedroom. According to the builder, he said it's 4-bedroom.
All right, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. I can't pronounce your name, so I'm going to call you Mr. Keith. Can you please come back up? So on 10/29/2021, the garage area and basement slabs are poured without you having called for inspections. When the people are coming out and they're performing these certain tasks, like pouring slabs, the plat is in the box, so are they not required to go look at that just to make sure that they have an understanding that once they start this pour, because I know like if you pour driveways, the people come and they do the stakes before they pour, wouldn't that trade that came out to do the pour, wouldn't they go into the box to make sure that they had the correct setbacks rather than just, well, I think it'll be, I'm going to think it's good, this, just by sight?
Madam, I believe we had the foundation for the slab already. We have to have a foundation for the garage slab at that time when they came and inspected. But it was not poured in yet. All the foundation was dig and put the rod on in the foundation, bottom of the house and the garage. Nobody noticed it. This was something mistakenly happened. It wasn't intentional, by all due respect to everybody.
I guess my question is again, is that there wasn't the foundation, there was it was set into place for a pour. Nothing had been poured at that time, correct?
When was that we kind of?
So on 10/29/2021, when the garage area was to be poured, there was no inspection called for somebody to come out to make sure that the footings were correct before the pour. The pour was done, but there was no inspection, which at the time you were to call inspections all along the way.
If I may say, the pouring was done the same day because we ordered a pump and we don't do the garage separately. We did everything in one time. Garage and foundation, all the downstairs and upstairs. We didn't do two different times.
But as a contractor, you know your schedules, so you would have known the night before or even a week before when you will have scheduled for that pour. So you knew that on 10/29 you were going to have a pour, but you, I'm sure, had plenty of time, at least a week, maybe more, to have called to come in for an inspection.
I thought they were inspected already, foundation downstairs and garage at the same time. I did not know we have to do separately because foundation, all of them was dig at the same time, and the footing was put the same time, and after we'll come back with the slab. We did not have any issue, and I did not notice it or unexpected. Nobody mentioned to us. We wouldn't build it, by all due respect. This is not something intentionally. It's already been mistake by few down the road, and I'm so sorry for that. And regarding to tearing down or doing something, that's almost impossible because it will not be structurally, it's not going to be right to do so.
Okay, does anyone have any questions that they would like to ask him further? Okay, you can have a seat. Thank you very much. This is a really hard variance because the house is built. It's in the setback. It isn't in a setback 1 foot. It's 14 feet, which is pretty severe. I think that I guess the lucky thing about it is it's not in a community, or it isn't being built where you have a straight line road and then you can see the houses that aren't, that this isn't going to protrude out and look really strange if you have a community where the houses are all lined up in a row. So this isn't going to be hugely significant as a visual. It's just kind of, it's just so unclear how that this got this far and the house is built. And I have, I want to respect the HOA, and they have asked that they really would prefer that this house, that the garage portion of this house, it's in the setback, not be torn down because it would ruin the look. And I think this is a builder error, and then we're just penalizing the owner of this house. So with that, I approve V97.
This is your motion.
I make my motion to approve V97 with the following stipulations. Is that right? 1, request staff to continue to monitor going forward. 2, remove the circle drive from the plat and resubmit a revised plat to building inspections that would require, for just, instead of the circle drive, it'll just be a drive straight to the garage. Building inspections to inspect the driveway footings before the driveway is approved. 4, the west side of the property line, I'm requiring a landscape buffer, a single row of evergreens and a single row of shrubs. This plan will be professionally developed by a certified landscaping company. It must also be, irrigation must also be provided to the site that by the owner of this house. So it must be submitted to the county arborist for approval. It must be maintained by the owner with the irrigation system. Number 5, record a revised plat prior to planting for 1A, a reduced setback from 60 feet to 46 feet on this west property line, and B, to add a 50-foot buffer on the western property line. And C, the stop work order will remain in effect until the revised site plan for the driveway is approved and the revised plat for the 15-foot buffer is approved by the county arborist. And that's my motion.
Okay. Second for purposes of discussion.
Do we have questions? Yes.
May I ask a couple questions, Madam Chair, of the motion?
Of course, Mr. Peterson.
Number 1 in the motion was for staff to monitor the development. Can we clarify that's development inspection staff?
Oh, okay.
Okay. Number 4, the landscape buffer. Can we
Yes.
clarify that's to be done prior to the certificate of occupancy being issued for the house?
So you're requiring, I wanted it to be done before, I want the landscape plan to be certified, and then I want him to, before he starts putting that in, I guess I just don't know that, if you could help me, Mr. Peterson, with the process for this plat to be recorded that would show this 15-foot buffer, and also the plat to show the circle drive removed and having the straight drive to the...
Yeah, I think if we do the landscape buffer installation and the final plat revision prior to the CO, that'll keep them from moving into the house.
Okay.
So that's
And I
a
could-
pretty big stick. And then I guess the last part I had, did you say 50-foot buffer on the western property line or 15-foot?
15-foot buffer.
A 15-foot on the western? Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah, because 50-foot would have been kind
Yeah.
of wide.
Yeah. Thank you.
Really kind of going to the house.
Those are all the questions I have.
15-foot buffer.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So those are the corrections? Is that good? Okay, thank you.
It, um,
Madam Chair, can I ask a few questions of staff?
Yes.
Thank you.
Save my-
Are you recommending that before the issuance of any CO or before the issuance of a final CO?
Well, there's only one CO for a house.
Only one now?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, can you tell us about this prior variance request?
It wasn't a variance request before this board. The subdivision has a self-imposed 75-foot building line from whenever the subdivision was built back in the 60s, I guess. So, the county code is just 60 feet. So the 75 to 60 was an internal process with the HOA. It wasn't us.
Did we approve a variance previously, though?
No.
No.
You're saying the variance comes from the HOA, not from the county?
That's right.
Variances.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Mr. Johnson, do we need to make any other clarification?
The motion needs to be amended to include the clarified language, and I don't know if the member needs to restate it or if just to add it, but I'm trying to think about in terms of the minutes in the record. The clear, if she would just accept, make an amended motion to include the clarified language as discussed.
Okay, I make a motion to include the verified language as requested by Mr. Peterson.
Do we have a second?
Second again.
So, prepared to vote? The motion passes 5-0. Thank you.
That's it.
We now just have, thank you. We now just have some housekeeping, folks. The minutes, if you've had time to review the minutes from both the variance hearing on August 10th and our work session on September 12th, I would entertain a motion to approve those minutes.
I make a motion to approve all the aforementioned minutes.
Second.
Second. All in favor? Approval is 5-0. I now would entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, all in favor? Thank you all.